great example of a lesson that was just in time around functionalisation. I was in Japan at the time, had a phone call from one of my business partners, and I'm flying, thinking it's fantastic, we've got Cadbury Schweppes as our customer, we're rolling along. He says, we've got no money, Andrew. Right. We're winning, it's fantastic, everything's great. He said, no, in the bank, there's no money in the bank. Okay. Anyway, so I fly back that weekend, and the directors come into the office, and I can still remember we're sitting around and we're sort of rifling through our incredibly complex, financials, which were spreadsheets and, scraps of paper and bits and pieces at the time, lacking a fair bit of maturity back then. And we couldn't find it. We thought, I think if we refresh NetBank enough times, maybe the money just starts to appear back in here. It didn't. Anyway, no, I can still remember Micah, one of the partners who'd rung me, he started to rifle through the few staff that we had. He's rifling through the desks. And I remember out of the corner of my eye, he's sort of standing at one of the desks and nothing on the desk, nothing that he can see that's, magically a whole lot of money. And he opens this drawer and it almost explodes with paperwork. And I can see it, and he brings it over into the meeting room and he tips it out on the desk where the four of us are sitting around. And it's supplier invoices. And there was, at the time, $1 million worth of invoices that we had not sent out to our customers. This is in a year when the previous year we did $1 million worth of revenue. So this was a lot of money for us. And this poor girl, Angela, who still works for us to this day, she had no framework, no processes. She didn't know what to do with them. The poor girl had just been putting them in the drawer and go home at the end of the day. Anyway, so needless to say, functionalising our business was a key learning, and it's helped us really scale the business to where it is today. And there's a lot of frameworks for Angela to work with and processes, and we know when she starts to put them in the wrong drawer. Anyway, we sent those out over that weekend, and the money started to come back magically into the bank account. The second is getting leverage. So once you've started to understand each of the areas of what your business will be and the model that you need to start to adopt, the idea is that you start to get leverage. And here's where there's a key, difference between, for me, finding a manager for a function and finding a leader for a function. Once you can find someone, once you see someone that can come into your business and absolutely take hold of an area, own an area, and run with that without your constant input, but obviously guidance and tapping the edges and some key indicators, you find a person like that, my advice would be chase them and almost give them whatever it is that they ask for. Those are the people that, as you bring them into your business over time, will absolutely transform it, and there's no way that you can do it all yourself. And these guys, for me, the first one that I got was, and it's funny we should be talking about it, my sales manager, someone that could come in and just run with sales and that whole function. And I stepped back and started to look further forward, and that was at the start of that curve, and away we went. Absolute watershed moment, getting leverage in my business. The third lesson, and probably my favourite, is around building culture. I mentioned earlier that we'd identified those two core founding values around relationships and technical excellence. And you'll find as you go and as you grow and as you evolve your businesses or whatever it is that you do as your endeavour, to have this culture and to have what becomes a mantra and a belief system within your business. Finding people, they almost attract themselves, you attract them to your business. So if you can imagine now, we've got this business, everybody comes to TD, they love the relationship side of it, they love the technical excellence, the automation that we strive for. And it's almost like they come, and I think Peter mentioned the same thing, they come to be a part of your business then, as opposed to you finding someone that, you think of Apple. People don't go to Apple because they want to go and program on an iPhone. They go because of the belief systems. They go because they want to be a part of something. And so being able to build out that culture, being able to grow that and understand and be able to articulate what your core values are that are going to be the foundation for that is so important. And a lot of those people have become friends of mine for life, whether they've stayed with TD or moved on to different sort of endeavours. They become friends for life because they share so much of your same value set. And I'm still racing through it because I want to get through as much as I can. Fourth point, finding money. And that doesn't always mean as lucky as opening a drawer and finding $1 million of those dollars. But for us, we had grown very quickly, and You can imagine, of course, you're being successful, you're making profit, but you're hiring people as fast as you can ahead of the curve. You're trying to promote parties and all, spending the money on things that build the culture. You're sending out invoices, and your customers are saying, "I'll pay you when I get around to paying you." And for us, when we, as a business going from 3 million to 10 million to 30 million and beyond, you can imagine there's a lot of that's happening again ahead of the curve. So I've sort of identified, I guess, 5 different instruments, if you like, for funding that I wish someone stood and told me back when I was starting. I sort of trip over them as I go, and they're almost found just in time. And I haven't used them all with TD. I've used all of these in different areas and with different businesses over time. But the first of those, I would say, is a simple one, and that's leasing. Just the same as getting a car and putting it on a lease. When you're building a business, if you can take a piece of equipment and you can pay for it over the useful lifetime of that equipment, then you're far better off from a cash flow perspective. And I'm not talking about mortgaging the future. I don't mean push the whole cost out till all of a sudden one day you wake up with a balloon payment. But if you can lease that and evenly distribute that over the useful lifetime, then you start to be able to reserve cash flow for today. The second one is one that I've used a lot, and it's interesting. It's I'd sort of term it vendor finance, which you'd hear about in sort of housing and that sort of thing when you buy a house and maybe the owner finances it for you. For us, and I think it's the case in a lot of industries, there's always the big players that are interested in the smaller players, and you've generally got something to offer, and oftentimes you'll promote something that will make them successful as well. So if you can find those people, and for us it might be IBM, HP, these big guys, and if we're going to be successful with HP or IBM, we're going to be selling a whole lot more of their gear. So I would go to these people over the years and say, hey, well, we can't sell it if we haven't got one. And more often than not, we were able to, with the right vision and the belief in sitting in front of these guys, they would sit there and go, here, okay, have one. And we would have, at any point in time, hundreds, if not, over $1 million worth of equipment that we haven't paid a cent for, that we're using to build solutions, promote different services within the marketplace. And it's got to be win-win, but, as a form of, if I had gone and had to lend the $1 million to get that equipment, that just chews up so much of your valuable capital within the business. Third is what's known now as receivables finance. So this is an instrument, if you like, that a lot of you, I'm seeing some heads nodding. This is very, very powerful as an instrument, and it's offered generally by most banks now for growing businesses. So oftentimes, you don't have a house to mortgage or 3 houses to mortgage, depending on how much money you need. But what you have is these invoices you're sending out, which form, as they sum, a ledger or an accounts receivable. And the bank, depending on who your customers are, will treat these as an asset. So you can go to the bank and say, I've got this accounts receivable, it sits at 500 grand or it sits at $1 million or whatever it is. And the bank will lend you an amount or as a percentage of that accounts receivable. So then if you can imagine your business is going like this, so it's 1 million on your ledger one year, and it's 2, and then it's 3, and then it's 4. And not many other facilities will scale at the rate that a receivables finance facility will scale, just as simply as your AR goes up, as long as your customers are quality customers. Fourth is one that you see and you hear a lot about, which is just raising cash from equity. So I won't talk too much about that, but that's obviously going out and beating the path and sitting in front of guys with a whole lot of money and bearing your soul and asking for 10%, getting 1%, whatever it might be. As I say, a small share, a big share, get them in the door. If it's smart money, it's good money. And the fifth is probably a combination there, which I'm seeing a lot more of, and I think that's the same overseas, is convertible notes. This is where a funder thinks, I guess, that they've covered their downside risk. So this is a combination of debt which potentially becomes equity. So you go out, you say, I need, $10 million. Your funder says, instead of me taking those shares right now, I'm going to loan you the $10 million. And I think, if in 3 years' time you've done well, I'm going to convert that into shares within your business at a pre-agreed price. If you don't go well, I'm just going to ask you for the $10 million back because I'll treat it like a loan. So you've got to be reasonably careful about the way you use it, but you find it opens more doors and more opportunities to raise capital using convertible notes, and see it becoming more and more popular. I'm probably running out of time, but no one's waving at me, so I'm just going to summarise and leave you with a few parting points. So that was functionalise the business, get leverage, build a culture, and find money. three final thoughts that have been great for me over the time. Mentoring and leading a life of learning. Just keep learning and ask questions. Like I've got Peter here sitting right in front of me. These people, and it's myself now as well, we've been in the industry for a long time. You find us, we'll be happy to help. More often than not, people that are passionate about what they do will help you, and they'll be only too happy to share as much of their experience and accelerate your learning, as they can. Goal setting, I probably don't have to stress that much, but set a big goal and just go after it. Last one, hard work. I hear and see a lot of books written about working smart, not hard. I don't know any of my successful friends that have lived by that mantra and drive a great car or have a wonderful family and house and all that sort of thing. If you are out there working smart thinking you don't have to work hard, there is someone else out there working smart and working hard competing with you. So if there's any advice I can have, it's work smart if you can, and it's definitely work hard. So with that, thank you very much for your time. Enjoy your journey.